Hello, conscious community. Kyle here, your favorite conscious agent, back with another amazing Share Your Experience interview. Joined today by a really special guest. Sharon is a nurse who had her psychedelic awakening and was eager to share that experience. So I'd love for you to start by giving an intro to our audience who those aren't familiar with your work.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Kyle, for having me. This is really exciting. As you said, I guess you could say spiritual awakening. I'd still
Mhm.
call myself an atheist, even though it probably doesn't fit. I'm just kind of clinging on to that title since I've had it for so long. Um, but I had a psychedelic experience in 2020.
Mhm.
And prior to that, I had bought into everything that the DARE program had taught me. I was a good student, I was a good kid, I was going to be bad and do drugs and all that stuff. But when the pandemic hit, I learned that actually psychedelics are not what the government had taught me or the DARE program. And so I started down this journey of trying to figure out like what is it that they do to your brain, because it's obviously very unique. And it was through the course of that I learned so much that I'd never known before. And I just was eager to share my knowledge once I felt confident enough to start talking about these things. So about 2 years ago, I started on TikTok with just broadcasting what it was that I knew. I really started to get a little more aggressive with it after I'd participated in a clinical trial.
Mhm.
I had done that partly for science, but partly also to feel a little more buffered in safety, because I am a licensed professional, and we are talking about Schedule One substances. So I felt that I could share my story after I had done it in a way that was FDA and DEA approved. Um, but after that, I felt like it was a little bit dishonest to try to merge my healing journey
Mhm.
with the clinical trial that
Mhm.
was not meant for healing purposes.
Mhm.
So I squashed all that, and I was like, ah, I'm coming out. I had an experience in 2020, and I don't know. Since then, I had many experiences through the clinical trial. So come at me, and that's
Wonderfully
right
put. I'd
now.
love to hear how you got into the medical field and what specifically, as the pandemic, unfolded, what started you on that rabbit hole of
Yeah.
plant medicine.
So, yeah, how I got into, so I've been a nurse for 18 years now. I got into it as a second career, actually. I got my first degree in philosophy,
Mhm.
and I taught English for a while as a second language and traveled the world. And um, that was great, but I wanted to be even more helpful to
Mhm.
people. And I felt that medicine was the path to being the most helpful. Well, teaching English as a foreign language is great. I wanted to do more. So that's what led me into nursing. And then from there, I was very happy with my career. I started in emergency medicine, and up until the pandemic, I was just as happy as could be, traveling, living my best life, working in different emergency rooms. And it wasn't until the pandemic hit, and I want to be clear, like, that my experience with mushrooms was recreational. It was an attempt to escape from this new world that we were living in, that was, not only frustrating. Like, I don't even know if people remember this anymore, but from the medical side, we weren't given enough supplies. It really became obvious that all these protocols and all of the things that were put in place for our safety were just kind of getting pushed to the wayside. We were taught that you only use PPE once, and then you got to throw it away, and that's not effective. And now we were putting our masks in paper bags and keeping them for weeks on end. A lot of things just stopped making sense. And that was then compounded by the fact that I couldn't travel, which was my way to decompress. Um, so yeah, I just had a trusted friend that was like, well, if we can't go on journeys in real life, maybe we can go on a trip in our head. And I thought that was funny. And so I thought, okay, why not? Um, and then I did not jump off a building. I did not go crazy. And I thought, okay, what's going on here? Which I think I already said that
Hmm.
too. But yeah, so that was kind of how.
Very well put. What was the dosage of that first experience? What was your process like afterwards, reflecting on all that?
Oh, yeah. I have no idea what the dosage was that first time. I knew nothing. I
Hmm.
literally knew I had this friend that I really trusted that was
Hmm.
also a professional and, very successful. So I thought, okay, if he's going to do this, I'll trust him.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no idea what the dosage was. I do remember that I became very talkative. I had a lot of things to say about a lot of things, which I still do. Um, but I remember like kind of waiting for like to just go crazy or to just start seeing dragons or like hallucinating. None of that
Hmm.
happened. Colors were more vibrant.
Hmm.
I do feel that I had a healing experience through the conversations I had during that open period, but I did not know the therapeutic benefits. I did
Hmm.
not know that mushrooms or any psychedelics were helpful with PTSD or major depressive disorder, OCD, or anything that I know about now. It probably took me about 2 or 3 years to kind of connect the dots that I probably incidentally had a healing experience, um, rather than just knowing that, like, okay, these can be healing. And um, yeah, so yeah, I wish I could tell you what the dose. Probably, I would say, I don't know, 3 grams.
That sounds
I
about right.
definitely,
Yeah. So
yeah.
post that first experience, then what kind of set you off to start doing more research and wanting to get involved in a clinical trial?
Well, so I think what really kicked it off
Hmm.
was in 2021. The world started to open up, and I was eager to visit with a friend of mine who I had met before she even went to medical school. So we were friends. I was a nurse. She decided to go to medical school, become a doctor. She had just finished her residency and was now a newly minted internal medicine attending uh, in 2021. So I think it was her first year, and I was excited to go visit. And I was excited to tell her, like, well, I was just starting to learn stuff about mushrooms and psychedelics because I just saw, like, oh, they actually do have healing properties. They can help people. Like, I want to share this with all my friends and tell them, not share the experience, but share what I've learned about them. And to my surprise, she came at me a little arrogant, wanted to just shut down the conversation and teach me about SSRIs.
Hmm.
And in a way, she had just newly learned about all these, drugs and stuff. And she wanted to share that she knows more than me now about these things. And I just remember leaving that conversation so frustrated and so angry because I didn't have the words, I didn't have the language to defend what it was that I experienced.
Hmm.
And and through, I would say, that anger and frustration, I then just went all in. And once I found, like, a couple of neuroscience courses, that was it. And now I feel pretty confident. Like, there isn't. I wish I could go back to that day that we had that conversation. Um, but my hopes with the things I'm doing on TikTok and stuff is that I can arm other people, like my former self, with the knowledge and the words and the language to have those conversations or navigate those conversations with medical professionals. Because there is a way to talk to us. There is a language for sure.
Why do you
Um,
think there is so much initial pushback from medical professionals in the medical community, even with all this new research coming out and anecdotal evidence from people?
you
Are they
know,
scared the system is going to change? Are they bought out already by big
no, I
pharma?
I think so. I think it's twofold.
Mhm.
I think, you know. one, there's a certain personality that's going to be drawn to medicine
Hmm.
and is going to be drawn and is going to be able to complete all the rigors of what it takes to get into medical school or nursing school, and what it takes to then get your license, because you do learn like how to protect yourself.
Hmm.
So on the one hand, like, why, if you've already learned what the government has told you, because these are Schedule 1 substances,
Hmm.
so it's not like you would ever be taught to tell patients to do something illegal. You're just not going to give much attention to that.
Hmm.
um, and then you learn that it's something that's bad, right? Schedule 1 is no medicinal use and high potential for abuse, so that's checked off. So there isn't really much of an interest then to learn more about it. And I mean, there's tons of research, there's tons of information available, but if you're not interested in it, it's not like it's coming at you.
Hmm.
And it's not in your face. And I there every conference I've been to, and including PS 2025 or maps the maps conference, there's so many scientists and so many
Hmm.
really really smart people, but they're concentrated in that space. And the reality is, like, most people aren't going to that conference. What was there, like, let's just say there were 10,000 there, maybe
Hmm.
11,000 people. That's a really small percentage compared to
Yeah.
the general public. I don't know how many doctors there are out there, but I think there's like 3 or 4 million nurses, registered nurses in the country. Uh, so we're talking about a very small percentage of the population. Maybe there were like 150 nurses at that conference.
Oh, wow.
Um, so, people just don't have exposure to it. And
Hmm.
then if they encounter it from a patient, they're going to have to be very professional. A week and a half ago, I actually had an appointment with my primary doctor, who is in San Diego. And so I know I don't live there anymore, but I do keep all my doctors down there because telemedicine, yay. Um, but I did want to go in person, and I thought, okay, this will be my opportunity to have that conversation that I know many of the people I chat with on TikTok are forced to have when they go to their clinician and say, hey, SSRIs aren't working for me. What about psychedelics? Um, and sure enough, when I asked her, I'm like, what do you know about psychedelics? Are patients asking you about them? I watched her visibly get uncomfortable and
Hmm.
fidgety and just really, like, she had to professionally navigate that conversation. Even if maybe she does mushrooms on the weekends. We'll never know. But in that sort of power dynamic where she is seen as an authority on
Hmm.
things, clinicians can't be open with their patients,
Hmm.
even about stuff that they might know, until like the government says, like, okay, it's okay to talk about these things. So I think it's fear based. They want to protect themselves, and then I think it's also they just don't have access to the information unless they're curious about it. So they're just building off of whatever it was that they once learned 20 years ago.
Well put. So, yeah, again, doing your own research, how did you get involved in this clinical trial, and what made you really want to commit to that?
Yeah. So I had taken a neuroscience course that was about 6 months long,
Hmm.
that really dove into how these compounds work on the brain. I learned so much from that class. And then I think I'm trying to remember, I think one of the instructors had asked people in the class, like, if you're interested in the clinical trial, we can, interview you and see if you qualify. I learned later that there was a high bar for qualifying for this clinical trial. So I had been telling everybody, like, oh, you should do this, you should do it, but it was actually kind of rigorous to get into it.
Wow.
Um,
What were some of the
yeah,
parameters that you had to check off?
you so um,
And yeah, what was the case study of what they were looking for?
Yeah, they were looking. So they were just. This was a non-therapeutic trial. where they were just looking to see what goes on in the brain during the course of the entire time that you're under the influence of psilocybin. So it was 4 MRIs. I think they're still recruiting. Actually, I think they still need 2 more people. If anybody that's listening, um, we could drop it in the chat, or I don't know how you do it. I could help you with the link for that. But it was uh, 4 MRIs, one MRI of the brain before they dosed me with psilocybin, and then once I was dosed, we did 3 more subsequent MRIs, which lasted about 45 minutes, and then EEGs, which an EEG is when they stick a bunch of it's not electrodes, but they measure the waves in your brain, a little bit different than an MRI. MRI kind of measures, fMRI measures the blood flow, or like how you're metabolizing, how different parts of the brain are active. So that was just to see, like, what is my brain doing from the minute I consume psilocybin to 4 hours later, basically. And then they were also measuring, I was hooked up to, a heart rate monitor, and throughout the whole time. And I think they were measuring my respiration rate, a couple other things. I had to, so in order to be in this clinical trial, you can't obviously be claustrophobic. You, that's a lot of time in an MRI machine, because it was 4 different days. So 16 MRIs altogether, 4 days, 4 times each day. Can't be claustrophobic. You have to have had experience in an MRI machine before. You have to have had experience with psychedelics before. You can't have had any mental health diagnoses. So a lot of people are excluded for that reason. I had to have a psych eval, like a pretty rigorous like questionnaire done beforehand, and then in-person interviews with the psychiatrist. And then each day also an interview before we started, just to make sure I was like in a good place. So I think a lot of people just don't like the idea of being in an MRI that much. That's probably the big factor. Yeah.
What were the dosages that they were giving you, and what was your experience kind of in there?
So oh gosh, so interesting. You when people talk about these substances, we try to like share with people, like, this dose will give you this kind of experience, and this is a microdose and it won't give you this. And they gave me the same dose each time, which was 25 milligrams of psilocybin. That was synthetic. I think it was sourced by Usona. Is that right? I don't know who it was, but it was a precise dose of 25 milligrams, which comes out to be about 2.5 to 3 grams. If people are doing these things in grams to translate it. And each experience was different, though. Even though the setting was the same amount of sleep, rode the same bus each time to get to the facility. I tried to keep everything the same. And despite that, the first time actually was a smaller dose because they wanted to test out. But the following 3 times, and the first of the 3 times where I had the same dose, I felt nothing at all.
Wow.
I felt different, but no visuals, no closed eye visuals, nothing. I even joked with them, like, did you guys give me psilocybin? Like, what did you give me? Like, I felt different, but there was no placebo in this. The second time, maybe for about 10 minutes, I had some closed eye visuals. And then the third time with the 25 milligrams, there was a period I distinctly remember where I was in the MRI machine and I was like, oh gosh, I hope my brain goes back to how it was before, because it felt like lots of closed eye visuals and I felt very out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it should have been like that at some point with each of the times because, you know, it was the same dose
Mm-hmm.
and everything was the same. I fasted before with the other one. Like, so it's interesting to me that that was a different experience every time. So.
What was your integration process like afterwards, after you wrapped up with the trial? And again, what did you take away from that to now start promoting with your content, or where did that kind of lead your educational journey?
It's interesting, right? Because I think about my first experience, which wasn't intended. My first in 2020 was not intended to be therapeutic or helpful. Um, and then, fast forward 4 years later, uh, I know about these substances. I know how they could really give you that window of opportunity to change your mind about things, or, to have a breakthrough of sorts. And so, each of those days, I wanted to optimize this, right? It wasn't a therapeutic study, but I was going to fix me and whatever issues I was struggling with. And for me at the time, I really just wanted to have a better relationship with some people in my life. And so riding the bus there, I would think like, okay, I'm going to think about this and I'm going to think about this person. I'm think about this and I'm going to really like dive into this every time. Even though I didn't have visuals the first time, whatever, my brain would go somewhere else when uh, once they started to kick in. I never thought about the individuals I wanted to have a better relationship with. I was always like just a little scattered, thinking about other things. And yeah, the next day, the day after, I would be like, oh, okay, next time I'm going to really concentrate hard this time and I'm going to fix this and fix that. And, maybe I'll sort it out. But I think that really speaks on the importance of having a really great therapist working with you, or somebody that knows how to ask the right questions, um, and be present for when your mind might go in a different direction if you have like a very specific thing that you want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, no, I don't think therapeutically I got much out of it. um there was no guidance. And with my first experience, I wasn't guided, but I was with a really great friends and we had really great conversations, and that kind of guided
Mm-hmm.
things. But yeah, otherwise, there was no integration. I mean, that's why the vetting process on the front end
Mm-hmm.
was so rigorous because they wanted to know they could just let you go and out into the world for the days after that. Although I will say, to their credit, I did have the personal phone number of the psychiatrist, and each time they were like, "Call me anytime if you're
Mm-hmm.
struggling, if you're having any issues." Um, but the funny thing about that, and I think is something that clinicians need to start paying attention to, is that just to be clear, she was lovely,
Mm-hmm.
great human being, but we did not, and I'm sure clinically competent, but we did not vibe for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason. Like, I just didn't feel a connection to her. There was no way I was going to call her if I did have some sort of
Right.
crisis. And I think that's something that any of us that work in healthcare, and especially mental health, like, need to take in at some point and realize, like, we're not for everybody. Like, there's someone for everybody, or there's someone out there that can help someone, but you're not going to be able to, just because you know all the things, just because you passed all the exams, just because you can diagnose somebody and like what there is going on with them. If they can't open up to you, you're not going to be able to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And gaining that trust is something, you just got to vibe with the person sometimes. And that's not always the case, no matter how much you know. So.
So post that experience, did that drive a lot of the new content that you wanted to put out, and how did you kind of break that barrier of getting vulnerable and putting yourself out there?
Yeah. So like I'd said, I was gonna merge my 2020 healing experience with the 2024 clinical trial and everything that had happened to me in 2020 and such. I was just going to extrapolate that and put it into like my experience in 2024. But I, like I said, they gave me large doses multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's been a year since then. My fear before was like, oh, the board of nursing will,
Mm-hmm.
will question my license, question my competency. I've now consumed these Schedule One compounds. I mean, it's been a year since I did the clinical trial, which is, was sanctioned by the
Mm-hmm.
DEA and the FDA. And I haven't made any mistakes. I haven't had any issues with
Mm-hmm.
patients. I feel like there's enough buffer for
Mm-hmm.
me to just say all the things I wanted to say 5 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. So I did create a bit of a buffer there, but um, I I that's really what allowed me to do this, is because that's where I felt safe.
How
There, I
important is the role of community in the psychedelic scene, and what surprised you most when you started attending events like MAPS or just starting to connect to more people who, quote, worked more deeply with psychedelics?
Ooh, wow, that's a loaded question. There's so much for me to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, the very first conference I went
Mm-hmm.
to was Discovery Sessions
Mm-hmm.
in San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and I did not speak to a single person
Oh, wow.
there. I was so intimidated and I was so afraid. I showed up wearing my Lululemon from head to toe and my Starbucks coffee in my hand. And I did not feel like I fit in at all. And I felt like everyone was judging me, and they probably weren't, or maybe some were. But internally, I was like, wow, I am not, nobody else here looks like me. Nobody else here seems is carrying Starbucks or anything. They seem to not have much respect for people that just totally buy into corporate America. And here I am, like this walking stereotype. Um, like I'm just gonna, I don't know if I belong here. But yeah, I mean, I just kept showing up because I learned a lot at
Mm-hmm.
Discoveries, and I said, okay, well, uh, there's got to be some common ground, right? Because we both are there for the same reason, that we think these compounds shouldn't be criminalized. So, um, so I was going to just keep trying, but also showing up as my authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just needed to get over that hump there, um, with being intimidated and not feeling like I fit in. And yeah, I forgot the second part of your question with
Just
that.
saying, how, what, again, that evolution of attending different events, what changed from that first one, and again, the importance of community, who are some people who pointed you in the right direction, or that you like were looking up to.
Yeah. Ooh, people that Um, I mean, I think I have a ton of experience entering into like new environments.
Mm-hmm.
I worked as a travel nurse for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. So I've worked at, I don't know, 20 different hospitals or more. So it's not, that's a place though where I'm like, okay, we're all nurses, we're all
Mm-hmm.
doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals. Like I knew how to navigate that, but through that, there's still like all different kinds of personalities you encounter. And that's pretty much the same wherever you go. So, of course, I, eventually found people that were other nurses in the space. Um, and as well as, um, I always try to go out, like at least at a conference, I try to go and to some of the talks that I don't know very much about. I
Mm-hmm.
was very neuroscience heavy
Mm-hmm.
because it was driven. I was driven to like prove that friend wrong and have that conversation that like I couldn't have before. Um, But there's the whole cultural um, side of all of this that I don't know very much about. And so I always try to spend a little bit of time going to some of those talks that won't necessarily help my agenda
Mhm.
of, fighting the stigma, but I think is also very important to be able to speak on.
Storytelling is a great way to help educate and break the barriers of educating people about psychedelics, break that stigma. So I'd love to hear about the illustrations that you do and the book you want to put out there and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah. Yes, my comic book. Um, I forgot all about that. Um, I think that it's so those of us that know, right? You go to these conferences
Mhm.
and we're all sort of in an echo chamber where we're all just understand the power of these compounds, whether you have a scientist there showing you like the all the nuances to it, or you have someone from indigenous community that's like, yeah, we've been using this for thousands of years, you guys need to catch up. Either end of that spectrum, we all know. But when you encounter someone that has been taught by the DARE program, as I had, I feel like I know how their brain works because I was once there. Um, you're not going to be able to like pick up your phone and just be like, well, look, there's this data, there's this research, there's this clinical trial. But if you have like an artifact that looks visually appealing, it might prompt someone to pick it up and flip through it. Or just here, I have like a copy. Let's see. Um, right here, it's kind of like, oh, what is this? And maybe the people that believe psychedelics are something that should be in Schedule 1, maybe they know somebody that's talking a lot about these, and this is just a visually appealing sort of thing where they might just look at it, maybe put it down, but maybe the person that owns it could bring it to Thanksgiving or something and just be like, here, we can talk about this instead of politics. um, so it might be a more productive conversation.
Very
But it's not
nice.
going to, I don't think it's going to open up with somebody saying, but there's this clinical trial that like
Mhm.
I have on my phone
Right.
here. Let me show you. So yeah, so I was inspired to just create a tangible artifact that can start conversations.
Wonderful. Have patients opened up to you more? How do you now have these conversations with colleagues or friends and family?
Yeah, no, I just like my primary doctor who I put in the hot seat. I certainly do not have these conversations with patients. And I would probably behave much like my doctor if a patient were to ask me about it,
Mhm.
any of these compounds. I might be a little more open. I might tell them like, oh, there's clinicaltrials.gov, um, but I'm not going to dive into like my
Mhm.
personal experiences
Mhm.
or trying to say anything at all that would
Mhm.
come off as persuading them
Mhm.
to do something with these compounds, because ultimately it's would be persuading them to do something illegal.
Mhm.
So
What surprised you
uh,
most when you first started producing content on TikTok and social media, and what were some of those initial either comments or reactions, and what keeps you inspired to keep going?
um what surprised me the most about it? I think uh well, even beyond the content, I get so excited to teach people like what I know. Like, let me tell you about serotonin. Let me tell you, oh, you know what the default mode network is? I can tell you about that. This is a part of 7 different networks. I get so excited, and in my head I think like, oh, they're going to want to learn this stuff. Most people, and this it includes going to conferences that aren't psychedelic related, they're like, oh, cool, you know about these? Where can I get some? You know, that's not why I'm here.
Hmm.
um, there was a conference, health conference that I went to that had a lot of C-suite individuals and doctors and stuff. And I mean, they were fine. went as the mushroom nurse, educating people about psychedelics, and they were finding me on Instagram like 10, 11 o'clock at night, messaging me like, where can I get some? And I'm like, guys, I'm not a dealer. I don't like that. What? So I think what surprised me the most is how much people didn't want to hear what I knew and just wanted access. But that's great because that means that like there's interest in maybe changing the laws
Hmm.
when any ballot measures are put in place. So
Speaking of access, now in this day and age, there are, beautiful looking brands on Instagram that have websites, and we're selling mushroom chocolate bars and all this good stuff. What shocked you most seeing this stuff? How do you personally vet products you see out there in the market? And when you're not in a professional setting, how do you kind of advise what to
I
look out
I
for?
mean there are some really great people out there that are creating test kits.
Hmm.
Hyphae Labs
Hmm.
is, they're like super legit. And I know there's other companies out there. Anything that is, not regulated, you're going to run the risk of
Hmm.
getting some sort of substance that is not
Hmm.
what you're intending to get. And so I know I've been to a couple of talks where Hyphae Labs has, just tested random larger brands, and many of them um, just showed that they didn't even have any
Hmm.
psilocybin in them. It was something like 4 AOC or something in them. So I think what is the big one, Diamond or something that was all in the news. I forget which ones there were, but there were large brands that were kind of called out as like you don't
Yeah.
have any of the ingredients that
Hmm.
you say you have. But um, yeah, so I would tell people like that's a very real risk, um, and all the more reason why we need to change policy on these
Hmm.
things, because prohibition has never worked. We know this. So, people do understand that there are benefits to these things and they should not have ever been Schedule One.
What's been keeping you inspired? What upcoming events do you plan to attend, and where can people get the comic book and follow you?
Oh yeah. So what keeps me inspired? I love talking to people. I go live and it's just so much fun for me. I have like a goal of just talking for like a half hour, and then the other day it was like an hour and 15 minutes, and I literally just have to stop myself. And what inspires me in that is just the other day I had someone that came back to my live and they said in the chat, that they actually were accepted in a clinical trial thanks to just me broadcasting like, hey, go to clinicaltrials.gov. Hey, like I'll just look for you if there's anything in your city or state. So that was like when I started on this journey, I was like, if I could just help one person, like great. And so now I've helped at least one. So that's exciting. As far as um, what other conferences? I would really like to go to Antarctica
Hmm.
for that Wonder Summit. I don't know if you heard about that when you were
Yeah,
at
yeah, I've been
MAPS.
seeing rumblings of that.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a little pricey. But there was a raffle, so we'll see um if I win that raffle. But none really planned in the next couple of months. And yeah, if people want my comic book, there's a PDF and then there's the print version, and they're both available at the mushroomnurse.com. That goes straight to my Shopify. So that link should work. Uh, you can get it there. So this is volume one. This started out as 17,000 words, and I was only, in order to get this ready for maps, it was reduced down to 2,500.
Oh
And
wow.
this is a very abbreviated version, and I have many ideas for volumes 2 and 3 and 4. And so this is just the beginning. But it's, yeah. it's every time I encounter a new person that is like, wow, I just learned something. I'm like, okay, I'm inspired to do even more. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
Sharon, thank you so much for getting vulnerable here with me today. I appreciate your story, and we'll check out all the links and share with our audience.
Awesome. Great. Oh, thank you so much for having me.